Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to allow a couple more people to join, and then we'll get started with today's horticulture lighting webinar on the overview of the version 2.0 application process and some changes that have been made with the launch of our new website, QPL, and processing interface. Once again, for everyone joining, we're going to start in a couple minutes, just allowing a couple more of our participants to join. Okay. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you everyone for attending. Today we're going to be going into the horticulture lighting version 2.0 application process and an overview of that process. Today, you'll have myself, Bernadette Boudreau, the Associate Director of Operations here at the DLC, along with Aaron Feldman, a Senior Technical Operations Analyst at the DLC, presenting on today's content. We'd like to also give a shout out to Casey Holland, a Technical Manager at the DLC, and Maddie Sly, a Hort Lead Reviewer at DNR, who are going to be handling our Q&A and moderating that panel. Just a little webinar logistics. The slides from today and the webinar will be recorded, and it will be posted to the DLC website shortly after today's presentation. All attendees are automatically muted. Please let us know in the chat feature if you have any technical issues. And if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please utilize the question and answer section to enter your questions, and Casey and Maddie will respond to those questions. At the end, next slide. At the end, we will address a set of those questions to the entire audience. So please put those questions, but if you have specific questions regarding specific applications or your specific account, we may have to answer those questions after the presentation. So let's get started. What are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about manufacturing accounts, some of the new applications that are available with the Hort 2.0 release, some of the changes in the application process, the application submission and forms that are required. We're going to go a little bit into the technical and reporting requirements for the app types that are available, and also review the review timeframes and fees, and also show you a little bit about our new QPL format that was released August 1st. And then we'll wrap up today's sessions with our Q&A session. So let's talk about manufacturer accounts. These are manufacturer accounts for all programs, but we're going to talk about, since we're here for Hort, we'll talk have our talk catered towards Hort. So if you haven't signed in already to the new DLC website, you can go to the new My DLC website and select the sign in feature. If you've already had a password, you will be prompted to enter a new password for the first time logging into this site. This will allow you access to the full DLC website and its content. If you are a manufacturer that intends to submit applications, you will see an application portal link in your dashboard. This will allow you to log in and be sent to the AMS, the application portal, or AMS. You will use the same login information that you utilized before in the AMS to log into that portal. Note that the My DLC account information does not need to be the same as the application portal information. Those logins can be different, so please keep that in mind when logging in. Also keep in mind that all of the account management functionality that you've been used to in the past will still exist. So you will be able to add users and change your contact information if needed. If you are new to the DLC and need to create an account, you can go to the Create Account section on our website. You fill in the required fields and select Create Account. This will allow you to receive an email from the DLC to verify your email address. And once that email address is verified, the user can log in. Now, this creates your manufacturer account portal account, My DLC account, but you will need to create an account in the application portal in order to submit applications as well. That is the same functionality that you have seen before. Next one. If you are an existing company, you can create an account and associate yourself with an existing company. If that company already exists, you can utilize the search functionality to find the company that is already existing in the DLC database. The existing company's main contact will receive an email to approve you as a user or to be added to that company. So if you want to be added, promptly contact the administrator for that main account so they can approve your account immediately. As DLC does not have any input into that approval, it is all done by your manufacturing account administrator. If you need to create a new account, you will need to enter specific company information. You will have to confirm the company name and fill in some additional organizational details. You will then receive a notification on your home page to provide additional company information in order to verify your company. This will be information that will be needed to be placed on a company letterhead. Once all of this material is submitted and DLCs approves this request, the user can begin submitting products for that qualification. That means that the application portal button will show up now on your dashboard. So once again, just a reminder, for all new manufacturing accounts, a My DLC account must be created and approved before a new account in the application portal can be approved. So go to the Create Account, sign up for that account, and also sign up for the account in the application portal, and then those accounts can be simultaneously approved in order to give you access to submit applications. So let's talk more about version 2.0 and some of the new type of applications. Previously, in Hort versions, we've had just a single product application, which only allowed you to submit one product within an application. We now have family grouping, which allows you to submit multiple products in one application. We also have private label, which allows a company to private label an OEM listed product that is already on the Hort QPL. And we now have the update functionality now open and available. This can occur on a private label, single, or family grouping of products. So once again, we have the three application types. Family grouping. Note that at one point in time, there was an interim solution that was activated that required you to email information to the DLC. That interim solution is no longer active, and you can now submit all family grouping applications through the application portal. You as well can submit private labeling updates, as I specified in the earlier slide. Some of the other application changes are that, of course, applications can now be submitted, but also the invoicing and publishing of products to the QPL occur at different stages. I'll go more into detail on that on a future slide. One of the also main differences is the style of the application. I'll go into that difference in a later slide as well as the fact that reported data is now required. That means manufacturers can provide estimates of their reported performance of their products and have that listed on the QPL. So here's one of the changes that I mentioned before in the previous slide about the new application style. Previously, there was a question and answer style when you submitted a single product application. That question style has now been replaced with an Excel form and an upload of files. This mimics the SSL application format if you've seen that before. So essentially, you will fill out a form and upload all of the required documents in the slots that are available. And there are explanations of the details of the documents that need to be uploaded in the subsequent buckets for the files. So let's talk more about family grouping. What is family grouping? Well, family grouping was created to reduce the overall burden associated with listing multiple but similar product variations. It reduces the total application fees and also reduces the testing. What we do when we list these family groupings of products is we compare testing to all of the listing of all the products individually. It is very similar to the family grouping process with the SSL program. And you see in the diagram to the right, this would be an example of a family grouping. In our former process, you would have had to test each one of these products individually to have them listed on the QPL under version 1.2. However, next slide. With our new testing requirements, you are now required to submit the worst case of your family grouping. So this reduces your overall testing burden. So instead of testing every product individually, you can now test the worst product within that family set, such as minimum PPF. Instead of testing that on every product, you will identify the worst case, photon flux, and submit the LM79 correlated with that model number. This information is included in our technical requirements. And you can see more detail on these requirements and the reporting criteria in the technical requirements document. So if we apply this worst case format to this family grouping of products, instead of testing 32 individual products, your testing will actually be reduced to 8 individually tested products. What we've done here in this example is highlight the models that will have to be tested, which basically anchor your products in the worst case scenarios. The products that are highlighted in green are considered parent products, and they demonstrate compliance with the technical requirements based on tested data. The other products that are not shaded are child products, and child products are variations of that family grouping that do not require tested data. But because of the worst case scenario, we ensure that those child products still meet the technical requirements. Worst case criteria is basically reported on the threshold that is detailed in the technical requirements. Private labeling. What version 2.0 allows you to do with private labeling is relist products under multiple organizations and brands. Keep in mind that when you private label a product, it must be exactly the same as the OEM product. And keep in mind that you can only private label products that are already listed on the QPL. So if you are intending to submit a private label product, please ensure your OEM application or product is already listed. The advantage of private labeling is that private label products do not need to go through the redundant testing of an OEM product. We've created a simplified application review process for these pre-approved products, And the main thing that we need to verify is the manufacturer and product relation, which must be clearly understood and documented. One way that is documented is through the private label agreement form, where you must list the OEM manufacturer, the private label manufacturer, and details on the correlation between the OEM model numbers and the private label model numbers. When submitting, please make sure this private label agreement is complete and clear so that it can avoid back and forth between the reviewer and your submission. Next slide. Okay, so I know I mentioned earlier some of the application process changes. I'll go into that. Previously, in single-family applications, after submission, a review was completed after any clarification was done between the reviewer and submitter, and then the application was paid and immediately published to the QPL. That process has now been changed and now mimics the SSL process. What happens now is after your application is submitted, you'll receive a notification that your application is submitted and a reviewer has been assigned. Your application will then go through an initial review. Well, a reviewer will ensure that the application and all the documentation that you submitted is complete in order to complete a full review of your product to ensure that it meets the technical requirements. During this time, a reviewer will reach out to you if there are any issues that need to be resolved. After that initial review has been completed, an invoice will be submitted to you. After that invoice has been paid, that then starts the next step in the review process, which is the comprehensive review. During this comprehensive review, a reviewer will look at the application information and supporting documentation in more detail to ensure that all the technical documents and reporting requirements are met. And once again, if there are any concerns, we will work with the submitter to resolve any issues. After that comprehensive review is completed, then products will be published to the QPL. So once again, products will no longer be published immediately after invoicing. They will now be published after the comprehensive review is complete. And at this time, I would like to hand it over to my colleague, Aaron Feldman, who's going to go into more detail about the application submission process and the Excel application forms associated with this process. Take it over, Aaron.
Thank you very much, Bernadette. As Bernadette mentioned, I'll start off by going through some more details about the documents required and specifically the application Excel forms. This slide here shows the general instructions for submitting a Hort single or family application. All applications have a associated application Excel form, which will be used by the submitter to populate the reported performance data, as well as a few other pieces of information. Dependent on the type of application you're submitting, there may be a different application Excel form, which I'll go into a little more detail in the following slides. So starting a new application is fairly similar to the same process prior to the August 2nd launch of the new system. However, as I mentioned, and as Bernadette mentioned, the application types are slightly different. Within the application, there are sections where the submitter can upload the required and optional documentation, and some of those are listed out here in the bulleted format. And then lastly, prior to submitting an application agreement will pop up, which will require you to electronically sign. Moving into the private label application process. Private labels as well will have a Excel upload form that will need to be completed and submitted in the application. When you start an application for private label, you'll select the horticultural private label application type. And similar to the last slide, the required documentation is shown in bullets here. Since private labels are new to Hort, I'll go into each of these bullets in a little more detail. As I mentioned, there is a Excel application form. Additionally, you will need to submit product specification sheets for any new model numbers, any model numbers that are being included in your private label application. You will also need to submit a specification sheet for the OEM products that are already listed on the QPL that you are trying to qualify through this application. You will need to submit a proof of certification for both the private label products that are within this private label application, as well as the safety certification of the OEM products, the associated OEM products. Some common types of safety certifications are referred to as a certificate of compliance for UL or CSA, and an authorization to mark for Intertech. The next item on here is a multiple listing correlation sheet, and that's issued by your safety organization and is a cross-reference of the OEM model numbers and the private label model numbers. This correlation sheet also must have the private label manufacturer and the OEM manufacturer. As Bernadette mentioned, you will need to complete a private label agreement form and have that signed. This agreement form can be found on the private label application instructions online. And it is, in short, it's an agreement that states the OEM manufacturer agrees to private label their products to the private label manufacturer. The document must include all private label model numbers and their equivalent OEM model numbers. And as I mentioned, it must be signed by a representative for both the private label manufacturer and the OEM manufacturer. Lastly, a warranty document is required from the private label manufacturer covering their private labeled products for a minimum of at least 5 years. The warranty document from the OEM manufacturer will not be sufficient for submission and meeting this requirement. And lastly, similar to the single and family, there will be a pop-up application agreement to sign prior to submission. Since we did talk a little bit about those application excels, I'll go into a little more detail on the different types. You can see at the top, there's the family and single application types. However, those both use the same application excel. The application excel is shared between those types because the content is the same. The only difference is that the family application has more products in it. In terms of update, there is a update application form for both single and family products, as well as an update Excel for private label, and there is a unique private label Excel form. I'll go into a little more detail on the form specifics in the following slides. All of these forms can be found online on our website. You can see in the screenshot on the right under our work, horticultural lighting, and then you can select the type of application that you're planning to submit, whether it's single, family grouping, private label, or update. The application forms will be linked on the bottom of those slides. Each application form may have multiple tabs that are required to be filled out. The top image of the Excel tabs are from the single and family application form, where the bottom image shows the tabs on the private label Excel form. The private label Excel form on the first tab, application form, will include information on the private label manufacturer, such as contact information, as well as a model number breakdown, which will explain how the product catalog number corresponds to specific product options. The products tab on the private label Excel will include columns to fill out the OEM model number and product ID. That's the product that's existing on the QPL today, and the corresponding private label model number, brand name, and product name. On the single and family application form, on the application form tab, it includes some general application and product information, such as manufacturer contact information. It also includes the bulleted list here, starting with the intended use and description of the product. The intended use should be entered for the typical environment where the product should be used, for example, as supplemental lighting in greenhouses or as sole source lighting in indoor application, And this is a free field, so if those options don't exactly fit the intended use, feel free to type in what you feel is appropriate. And this will not be displayed on the QPL. It may be used for future policy development. The description of product section is a free section for submitters to give some detail on the products, on details on the product, which may be helpful for reviewers when they're evaluating your application. More information in this section may result in fewer questions submitted during the application review, and then products will get listed to the QPL faster. The scaling methodology section is required and should detail out how the reported data was determined. And I'll go a bit more into reported data on the next slide. Lastly, housing variations should be used if the product family has multiple different constructions. For example, if a product is a rectangular product with options for 2, 4, or 6 light bars, each of those construction differences should be listed as housing variations here. And then this will be used by the reviewers to gain a better understanding of the product and to be able to process the application as quickly as possible. The reported performance table tab in the Excel form is where submitters will enter each model number in their application that they wish to qualify. There is general information on each model number, such as ambient temperature and optical code and spectral subgroup. And those will be entered on this tab, as well as performance data, reported performance data, such as reported PPF. The reported data is the estimated performance of the products as determined by the manufacturer. And this data can be derived by a number of different ways or methods, and the DLC does not at this time require any specific method to be used. The scaling methodology section on the previous slide will be used by reviewers to ensure that sound engineering logic was used in determining this reported performance. And while the DLC doesn't dictate how that reported data is calculated, this data will be compared against the tested products, any product specifications, specification sheets, and marketing material if provided. Additionally, during the review, the specification sheet, marketing material will be reviewed to confirm that all of the performance claims on those documents meet the minimum requirements of the Horticultural version 2.0 technical requirements. If there are some claims of models not meeting the technical requirements, those documents will need to be revised. The next tab I'll go into is the Component tab. And the Component tab of the application Excel must be filled out with all components utilized within the product. So this will include any LEDs, drivers, and fans if included in the product, and the manufacturer of those specific components. On the Reported Performance tab, there will be a column for you to list out for each model number which drivers, LEDs, or fans are being used on that specific model number, whereas on this tab here will be a list of the components used throughout the family. For the LED components, the maximum LED current within the application must be entered. Additionally, the driver, fan, and LED model numbers must exactly match those listed on the Reported Performance tab. And for LEDs in particular, the component model numbers must be the complete model number and not just a series designation or some partial part number. Lastly, the Spectral Tuning tab is applicable only for horticultural products that have spectral tuning capabilities. And on this tab, each model number within your application from the Reported Performance tab must be included as well on this tab, and the spectral channel performance must be entered. In this tab, you can see that there's the spectral channel name, as well as the different performance criteria across for the specific channels. And so this information will be needed to be entered into each channel of your products. We do have some resources online that are available to assist with your understanding of the technical requirements, the testing requirements, and some other more nuanced product types, such as the spectrally tunable products. And they're available online. If you are looking under horticultural lighting, you can click on Hort Lighting Resources. And also, if you have any additional questions or suggestions for additional resources, please email horticulture@designlights.org. In this next slide, I'll quickly go over the timelines for these new Hort applications. On the slide, you can see a table of the different time frames for the different application types. I will note that previously there were different timelines for a base or advanced product. Advanced products being products that had multiple drivers, LEDs, or fans or spectrally tuning capabilities. Moving forward, there is no difference in the review time dependent on those additional features. As Bernadette mentioned earlier, the review is separated into kind of two sections, the initial and comprehensive review. And those time frames for the initial review and comprehensive review can be seen here. And these time frames are dependent on a complete and accurate submission. So if there is additional documentation or information required, the review may take longer than these stated time frames to evaluate the new materials. So please ensure that any required documentation is submitted, and that any information that may be useful to help explain the product to the reviewer or explain how the reported data was calculated, or explain why the specific products you tested you feel are representative of the worst case configurations for the family. If that information is provided, then the application can run a lot smoother. Now I'll go through the different fees associated with these new application types. The fees are listed here on this chart and are broken up by the application and the features of the product. The first section details the fees associated with single product applications or with parent products within application. For family application, these fees on the parent products are applied for each parent product within the family application. If we look at the private label fees, they do not include any specific parent fees, as the performance of those parents were evaluated in the OEM submission. And then lastly, the update fees are aligned between OEM or new applications and private label applications of products already listed on the QPL. And this last section will be a high-level overview of the new QPL format and how to interact with it. The QPL homepage is shown here, and it can be accessed through the website, the My DLC page, or your user portal, or it can be accessed by going directly to qpl.designlights.org. And here you can select which QPL you would like to view, whether that's solid state lighting, horticultural, or networked lighting controls. The QPLs function in the same general manner as previously, where you can search for a specific model number or product ID. One note here is if you are searching for an exact match, you can use quotes around your search term, and that will provide only results that exactly match what you are searching. There are filters that are available to narrow down your search to the desired characteristics. Also you can download specific groups of products and save searches for easy product verification. And then some new features on the QPLs is that you can search for products by the brand. You could also print some detailed product listings, which I'll go through in a later slide. And there's ability to see some more details of the specific products that you're looking at when you click into a product, which I'll show you in a further slide. This slide shows the various filters and sliders that can be used to narrow down your searches. At the top of the image on the left, you can select between listed or delisted products. You could also filter based on the manufacturer, the brand, the technical requirements version, or product features. And then on the right-hand side, you can see you can also narrow your search down based on specific tested or reported metrics using the sliders to limit your search. And lastly, at the top of the image on the right, you can see state compliance filter, and those will filter based on the state that's included on the filter and the requirements by that state for a PPE value. Previously on the QPL, SQD and PPID images were only available via download and a link. On the new QPL, these images, they display directly on the QPL as shown on the image on the left under the SQD and PPID dropdown when you're looking at a specific product. Also, if you are looking at a specific product and you go to print, if you click on print this page, it will print a, you can either print a hard copy or print a PDF of the specific product and its performance data, which will include these images. And with that, I wanted to thank you for listening in, and hopefully that this presentation helped give you a greater understanding of some of the Hort version 2.0 family grouping, private label, and update processes in our new system. As a reminder, the slides and the recorded webinar will be posted on the website shortly after today's presentation.
Okay.
And now we'll pick, oh, go ahead, Bernadette.
No problem. I was going to say thank you, Aaron. I was going to give you a little break in speaking for a second here and jump into the Q&A. So we've seen a couple of application questions come into the question panel, but please feel free to submit those applications now. I mean, those questions now, excuse me. Of course, we love applications too. But what we're going to do at this point in time is we've seen a couple questions that have been answered or asked by specific attendees that we believe would be helpful for the entire group. So I'm going to jump into one of those questions now. One of the questions that was asked by one of our attendees was, what is required to upgrade a product from a version 1.2 certification to version 2.0? The answer to that is that you will have to submit an update application in order to update your products. With that application, you will be asked, of course, fill out that full application form, and then also submit some new things that are new for version 2, which are TM33, as well as reported data. So that will be included in your new update submission. Another question is, can you add a child product at a later date from a parent product submission? For example, adding a new LED a few months after the original submission. The answer to that is yes. You can add child products, and Aaron briefly showed the fees associated with adding those child products. You can update those products and add those child using an update application, similar to an upgrade that is made from a version 1.2 to a version 2.0. Okay.
And Bernadette, I'll like just to jump in real quick on regarding that first question.
Yes, sir.
When updating for 2.0 from your 1.2 product. 2.0 does require the TM33, but there is a provision to allow you to submit SPDX files and IS files until the end of the year, as the TM33 is not fully adopted throughout the labs. We have this provision in place to assist with the adoption of this new standard in the labs.
Thank you for the additional clarification, Aaron. I appreciate that. Another question that came in is what type of documentation is required for private label applications in order to identify the manufacturer relationship with the listee? As Aaron stated earlier, one of the main documents is going to be the private label agreement form, which confirms that the OEM is allowing private label of that product. It also correlates the OEM product numbers or model numbers to the private label product numbers. Some additional documentation that is needed is, of course, that multi-listing document for the safety agreement, which shows once again how those OEM models are correlated to the private label numbers in regards to the safety listing. Anything else you want to add there, Aaron?
No, that sounded great.
Okay.
I can take another one. There was a question that came in on how do you define the worst case product? Is the performance data good enough to confirm that that's the worst case? So, the first check of to confirm worst case, we'll be looking at the reported data, and then the product with the lowest reported data will be the worst case product. We will evaluate, the product construction and your scaling methodology to ensure that sound engineering logic was used to create that reported data. And once those worst case products are tested, we will evaluate that against the reported data and to check if there is any possibility that the reported data is incorrect and a different worst case will be evaluated. And that's true for all the different photometric requirements. In the thermally, they're, the highest wattage products are typically result in the hottest fixture, as well as the smallest products with the least amount of air volume. And there is some more information in the horticultural family testing requirements document that's available online.
All right. Right. I see one of our attendees did mention that she cannot see her manufacturer portal button. If you are having any issues with your manufacturer portal button, please email horticulture@designlights.org and we will look to resolve that issue immediately or send you the instructions on how to resolve that independently. Yes, and if you do not see, if you have any issues or concerns with the new format, once again, you are still going into the application portal, the same portal that you did to submit applications previously. But now you have the ability to select the application type between family, single, and update applications. That will yield you to a new interface, which replaces the question style format with the upload document format that is mimicked like SSL. So if you have any other questions or need any additional technical assistance with that, please feel free to reach out to horticulture@designlights, as a submission still takes place in the old application portal, but the new format should be appearing for all the new users that log in.
And also to jump off that, Bernadette, there is in your application portal, of course, if you look at old applications that you've previously submitted, they will be in the old format. And you can continue to update those applications, and those applications will continue to be reviewed to completion. Any new applications will be in the new format. And additionally, if you have opened an application in the old format but have not submitted it yet, you will need to submit a new. You need you will need to open and submit a new application in the new format.
Okay. Yes. I'm going to jump into another question. How extensive is the update process if a product is already approved to the prior version? Well, depending on the type of update, the review process will still be extensive, but not as extensive as a new product. As once again, we still will need to review your TM33 or your SPDX and IDS files that are required. And we will also need to review the reported data to make sure it aligns with your scaling methodology that's provided in your application form. And so depending on the type of update could depend on the extensiveness of that update. But as Aaron presented before, those updates all follow the same review timeline. So you can expect that any update can be processed in the same review time frame. Going into the next question, there was a question from one of our attendees, is there a surveillance program available? Currently, there is not a surveillance program available to Hort formally, but we are targeting a major effort to do that in the near future. So keep abreast. You can also, once again, go to our DLC website and sign up for updates that will give you industry updates and updates on things that are going on in the DLC. So when information is available on that, if you have signed up for those updates, you will receive those notifications.
Another question came in asking, is there a deadline to update your version 1.2 products to version 2.0? And this is, the answer is yes, there is a deadline, and this is available online in the on the horticultural lighting page. Manufacturers will need to update all version 1.2 products to version 2.0 by December of this year.
Absolutely. All right. Once again, these slides will be posted on the DLC website shortly after this presentation. The slides as well as the recording in the event you want to listen to the recording for more detail that has been included in this webinar. And if you have any other questions, please keep those questions coming through our question and answer panel. Okay, a question that comes in to what happens to listings that will not be updated? Listings that are not updated to version 2.0 by December 21st, 2021 will be delisted. So those products will not be considered currently listed on the QPL to the current QPL version, which will be version 2.0. There will be communication regarding that delisting and reminders about this delisting period coming closer to that December 2021 cutoff.
Yeah, and those listings will be available on the QPL if you toggle the listing drop down to delisted.
Correct. So on our QPL, you can filter your products between listed and delisted, download and save those products appropriately. So we have another question on what additional information will be needed for the update. As we stated earlier, the TM33 or SPDX and IES files will need to be submitted for that update, but you will be required to fill out the full application form that Aaron described earlier, which includes the ability to enter your reported data information, which is new for version 2.0, and update any performance data that may be changing for your product. There are several types of updates, and depending on the type of update, if you're gonna, depending on the type of update, will dictate what's required. So for example, if your product has already been updated to version 2.0 and you just need to update the driver information, then we will just ask you to update that driver information for an update application. And you won't be required to submit all the additional test reports required. But if you are updating performance, you will be required to submit the associated testing and reporting requirements that prove that you meet the new technical requirements to version 2.0.
Yeah, and additionally, there is in the update application online, there is a section for you to upload an explanation of what you're updating and why, and that will help guide the reviewers to understand what's changing on the product and what test reports, if any, are needed.
Correct. That will help your initial review go much smoother. The more you provide in that explanation and of your update and description of your product, really assists our reviewers in really being able to understand your product and how it performs, so they don't have to reach out to you for more explanation. So if you want to stick as closely to those review timelines that Aaron specified earlier, please ensure that your documentation is as complete and as clear as possible, including filling out all of the tabs on that application form. If there are tabs or information that is not filled out on the application form, a reviewer will have to reach out to you to submit that information and complete and resubmit that form. We cannot make assumptions, and we do not want to make assumptions on what you intend on putting there. So please fill out those forms in their entirety. A question came in to where you can see if a product is version 1.2 or 2.0. Aaron, I don't know if you can flick back to the filter slides there for a second.
Sure.
I think one more up. Yeah, so here. So as you see, in the filtered versions, you can filter by technical requirements version. So you can look for 2.0, 1.2, or even 1.0 products. Note that 1.0 products will only show up as delisted products, as those products are no longer currently listed. After December 2021, if you keep your filter on listed products, you should only be able to see version 2.0 products. But until that transition, you can see version 1.2 and 2.0 products listed here. However, if there have been products that have been delisted prior to December 2021, you will need to change your filter to delisted at the toggle up above to see those delisted products. Okay. Please continue to submit your questions. We have a few more minutes here to answer any more questions that are coming in. And once again, we thank you guys for your attention to this presentation and for you submitting your questions, as we want to make sure that all of our stakeholders are well informed about this new process and can reach out to us at any time for any questions. So if we can't answer your questions here, or if you think about a question later on, please feel free to reach out to horticulture@designlives.org to submit those questions as well. Okay. Aaron, you have any more questions that maybe you want to pull out? I think we've pretty much hit most of them.
Yeah, I agree with that, and also would like to reiterate what Bernadette was saying, that if you have any questions, we're available to help during this transition, as it is a new format, and we want to make it as smooth as possible.
Correct. Correct. I also want to keep in mind that on the DLC website, we've optimized our search feature. So if you're looking for more information or some documentation on something specific, please take a look at the horticulture FAQs and the search feature that will hopefully direct you to the information that's needed. And as Aaron mentioned in the previous slides, we do have a lot of resources available for Hort submitters. Yet, if there's a resource that you feel that will be helpful to submitters or users, please feel free to reach out and suggest those resources to the DLC, and we can potentially work to develop those resources and have available to our stakeholders. There was a question: will new testing be necessary to update to get the TM33 file that you mentioned? So the TM33 file is a reporting requirement. and it's just a reporting format change. So in most cases, it should not require any additional testing. Yet, if you have a currently listed product on the QPL and you want to update that performance to, let's say, a better performance, or maybe want to add features to your product, such as spectral tuning features, there will be additional testing that will be required to add those additional features. Okay. We're having so much fun here, guys. We can handle a few more questions. We got about 5 more minutes. So is the contact us place on the website to ask general questions? I would say yes. The contact us does go to a more generic email address, but if you have questions specifically related to horticulture, please email us at horticulture@designlights.org, and our horticulture team can address your question specifically in relation to horticulture there. So we'll make sure that when we update those slides, we will include the horticulture at Design Lights email in our slides, so that in case you need to reach out to us, that email address is readily available to you. Okay. Okay. And once again, updating to version 1.0 to version 2.0, you are going to be required to submit an update application that includes TM33 and reported data. And if you want more detail in what that means for your product, you can take a look at the technical requirements, which detail out the documentation required, the testing and reporting requirements, and how that information is generated based on either your test reports or either scaling methodology or something like that. So a lot of that detail is going to be available. I will say that our team is planning on preparing a more comprehensive guidance document for submitters that will help them guide through some of the potential roadblocks that they may achieve while understanding this new process, especially when it comes to family grouping and private labeling, which is solely new under version 2.0. So if you go to the DLC website and sign up for those updates, you will receive a notification when that information is available. Okay. We got a couple more minutes here, so please go ahead. If you have any last minute questions, go ahead and enter them in the question and answer panel. I want to thank Casey Holland and Maddie Sly once again for moderating that panel. Hopefully all of your questions have been answered appropriately. And if you want some more detail or information, once again, please reach out to us at the horticulture at designlights.org email address. I will say, as always, we have fun whenever we get in front of our Hort audience. We appreciate all of the Hort submissions and appreciate your questions and feedback on this current technical requirements, the application process, and some of the future efforts that the horticulture team led by Casey will be implementing in the future. So at this time, I think we're going to say thank you once again to all the attendees. Thank you for all of our support staff, Casey and Maddie, and some of our other DLC representatives who assisted us with the administration in this webinar. And we look forward to your feedback and your emails on this process and any questions. Thank you very much, Aaron, for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for listening in, and we're looking forward to seeing all your Hort applications coming through.
That's right. Thank you very much.